y'all. Welcome back to this week's episode of AMA Friday with Amy Miller, Recruiting in Yoga Pants. So this week I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of what my day looks like. How do I prioritize my work? What are the most important things that I focus on every day in my day job? And, as always, big giant caveat, this is how I work. These are my priorities based on the things that are expected of me. Your mileage as a recruiter may vary greatly. So if you're watching this and going, that doesn't look anything like what I do, great. Share with the class. Drop a comment. Let us know how your day is structured, because I think it's really important for job seekers to understand what recruiters prioritize and why. By understanding how recruiters work and what matters to them, you are better able to position yourself as the solution to their problem. And their problem is filling open positions every time. That is the one thing all recruiters have in common. We are all paid to make placements. Cannot stress this enough. Whether you're an agency recruiter who's working on commission, whether you're a corporate recruiter who makes the same amount of money, whether you make 2 hires or 10 hires, I don't care. Every single one of us, our roles exist to fill open positions or to make placements. That, friends, is my number one priority. Now, how we get there can look different based on the nature of your role, the number of roles you might have, those kinds of variables. But let's talk about how my day goes. All right. So first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I immediately check if there's any fires. So I will literally be laying in bed, waiting for my husband to bring me my first cup of coffee, one eye open, scrolling Slack, scrolling email, anything urgent, anything on fire, anyone not show up. Okay, everything's good. Go back to sleep until the coffee comes. This is no joke. This is my life. But again, I want to just do a very quick little sanity check to make sure there's not any emergencies. Then I'm going to follow my calendar. I live and die by a color-coded calendar. I even put my personal appointments in green, my favorite color, on my calendar so that I carve out the time. I block the time so I don't get meetings blocked over it. I can take the PTO I need if I'm going to be gone for an extended period, what have you. So that's the second priority, is just making sure that my calendar is super clear and I know exactly what I need to do where, when I need to be on site, when I need to go to that client building, when I need to go to that meeting over there, what have you. So I do a lot of meetings too. I do have a lot of meetings. That I think is perhaps more of a function of my specific role. So let me explain a little bit about that, and then I'll kind of carry on with the priorities and working closest to the money. That's an important phrase we're going to talk about. So hold that thought. All right. So my job currently, I am a senior recruiting business partner. What is a senior recruiting business partner, you might ask? This is, in my world, I am someone who owns specific business groups. I have 4 leaders that I work with. Their teams typically are the ones doing all the hiring. They'll sometimes have roles that they're hiring as well, but for the most part, a lot of that activity lives within their organization. So they're managers, and so on. So I manage the recruiting process and the recruiting strategy for those 4 teams. Some of those teams have some overlap. Some are very different from each other. Sometimes the roles, I could be hiring an SAP developer one day and an hourly technician the next day. Those are both under my umbrella of responsibility. So it can get a little chaotic, but I have the responsibility and the privilege of building those teams. So my tagline on LinkedIn is, I build the teams that build the satellites. So that's what I get to do all day, every day. But I work with those leaders. I understand headcount. I understand required roles. What are we opening today? What can wait till tomorrow? So there's a lot of prep work that goes into a headcount and recruiting strategy. We want to know what we need to hire when, and then we have to do a lot of backwards math, right? I just met with a leader last week, and they're ready to turn on inspector hiring. So you might hear me talk about this on LinkedIn as well. And we need to hire a lot of people in a very short amount of time. So now I have to go back and say, okay, starting from this target, what does that activity look like? How do we kind of do that backwards math so that I know how many sourcing recruiters I need to align to this business? What other levers can I pull to get some additional support? What is I look back at previous data. What's a timeline for similarly scoped roles? It takes us, maybe 6 weeks from posting to offer accept. I made that up, but that's true for some of my roles, right? So maybe the math checks out for that one as well. So I'm going to do that kind of deep dive into previous recruiting successes, what I know about the market, how that specific kind of role impacts our ability to perform within a certain time frame, all that kind of stuff. I may be making it sound more complicated than it really is, but at the same time, it's a little complicated. A little bit. There's a lot of people that have to get involved in these discussions. Making sure we have interviewers ready to go, and we're carving out time on the business leaders and the interviewers' calendars to make time for candidate calls and things like that. So I gotta go push all those buttons and make all those people do all those things. Okay, so that's a big part of my job. I also work with a number of sourcing recruiters. So even though I have the ultimate responsibility for that big umbrella, those 4 teams that I mentioned to you, within each of those teams, I will have sourcing recruiters who are responsible for the front end candidate generation aligned to various recs. So another kind of fun recruiter math I get to do is making sure that alignment makes sense, making sure that I have people working on similar things so they can kind of bucket their search efforts. I make sure that recruiter A isn't overloaded and recruiter B doesn't have maybe doesn't have enough to work on, right? So I got to kind of balance that as well. So there's a lot of effort that goes into just making sure folks are working on the right things. I haven't even talked to a candidate yet, okay? And half my day is gone. In addition to that, as we are moving through the hiring process and we're filling all of these roles day after day, week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter, I am reporting on all of that. So I do weekly reports for 2 of those business groups. I do weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings or sometimes monthly meetings with leaders as well, where we do a broader look at either high-level activity, or sometimes it's a weekly meeting with the hiring manager where we're really digging into the specifics of their specific role, their specific hiring plan, what have you. Okay, now I'm ready to talk to candidates. Okay, so all of this work is happening. My sourcing team is killing it, bringing lots of great people, direct applicants, source candidates, referrals, you name it, into the process. I also get to be their closer. This is where working closest to the money comes into play. My top priority from a candidate perspective, making sure those offers are out, making sure offers are getting extended quickly, making sure offers are getting negotiated fast and fairly, making sure that I'm following up on offers that are in the hands of my candidates. Hey, it's been a few days. How are you feeling? I give people a week. I think that's fair, but I'll check in with you. I'll kind of pulse check, see how you're doing. Do you need more information? Do you have questions? How are you feeling about things? So working closest to the money, making sure I'm staying really connected to my folks at offer is really important to me. Next closest to the money, interview activity, right? So these are those formal final on-site interviews. These are initial phone screens, everything in between. I want to make sure those are running smoothly. So I do have an amazing recruiting coordinator who does the heavy calendar lifting. She's phenomenal. I couldn't do any of this without her, but I do check in with her. I am available if she needs me to unblock things or go, raise hell with somebody who's not responsive, you name it. Resume submittals, right? And again, my sourcing recruiters will own this, but I can come in and kind of bad cop if I have to, right? Or I can run those reports and see, wow, we've got a business that's maybe, they're not as responsive as we need them to be. Or, wow, we're seeing a drop in our pass-through rate. We were, half the resumes we were submitting were moving to the next step. we dropped to 30% in the last month. What happened? So I'm digging into those things as well and trying to understand, what happened. So at each touch point, again, top priority, make those offers, but then each layer down and each step on the way to the offer, I'm checking to make sure people have what they need. My candidates are supported, they're prepped for their interviews, they have the right schedule, partner, whatever it is. I'm making sure that the business is taken care of, my sourcing teams have what they need, and I try to always end those calls with, is there anything else we've not discussed yet that would be important for you? It's my favorite line. I use it often. I use it with candidates, I use it with hiring managers, I use it with my sourcing team. Is there anything I owe you? Is there anything else you need from me? Is there anything else blocking you from making a decision, moving forward, closing this, opening that? You name it. My job is to problem solve and make placements. And you, my job seeking friends, can hopefully show me that you are the solution to one of those problems. All right, friends, I hope that helps. Again, this was super high level, maybe not what you expected. It's maybe not a traditional recruiting role as you might think of one, but it is a great job. I love it. I have phenomenal partners. And again, my number one top priority, everything I do drives towards the single goal of making placements. All right, y'all. Hope that was interesting for you. Let me know if you have questions, and we will see you next week.